Most of the frauds in this series hid money. This one hid a chemical. For years, Volkswagen sold millions of diesel cars advertised as clean, powerful, and efficient all at once, a combination engineers had struggled for decades to achieve. Volkswagen said it had solved the problem. It had not. Instead, it had built a piece of software whose only job was to recognize when a car was being tested and to cheat. On the road, those same cars poured out nitrogen oxides at up to 40 times the legal limit. Roughly 11 million vehicles worldwide carried the trick. The scandal would cost Volkswagen more than $30 billion and send executives to prison. And it is different from every other case we have covered, because the fraud did not evade the control by accident or by neglect. It was engineered, deliberately, to defeat the control on purpose. To understand the fraud, you have to understand the promise. In the late 2000s, Volkswagen set out to conquer the American market with diesel. Diesel engines are efficient and powerful, but they have a dirty secret. They produce high levels of nitrogen oxides, a family of gases that cause smog and respiratory disease. Cleaning up those emissions usually means either expensive hardware or a trade-off in performance and fuel economy. Volkswagen marketed its way around the trade-off. It launched a campaign built on the phrase "clean diesel," promising customers they could have the mileage, the power, and a clean conscience, all certified as meeting strict American emissions standards. The cars sold well. The problem was that the engineering could not actually deliver all three at once, so the company delivered the marketing instead. Here is how the cheat worked. Volkswagen programmed the engine's control software to detect the specific conditions of a laboratory emissions test. A test follows a fixed, predictable pattern. The wheels turn, but the steering wheel never moves. The temperature and the timing are set. The software watched for that exact fingerprint. When it recognized a test in progress, it switched the car into a clean mode, activating the full emissions controls so the car would pass. Then, when the car sensed it was back on a real road, it switched those controls down to preserve performance and fuel economy. This kind of software has a precise name in law. It is called a defeat device, and it is illegal because its entire purpose is to produce one result for the regulator and a different result for the world. In normal driving, the affected cars emitted nitrogen oxides at many times the legal limit, in some tests up to 40 times. Think carefully about what the control was here. In finance, the control is an auditor or a regulator. In the car industry, the control is the emissions test itself. That test is the public's protection. It is the one moment where an independent standard decides whether a car is clean enough to be sold and driven near where people live and breathe. Volkswagen did not bribe the test or ignore the test. It studied the test and built a machine to beat it. That is what makes this case unusual. The defeat device is a control failure in its purest form because the fraud was aimed directly at the safeguard. But there is a second, quieter failure underneath it. A cheat on this scale, across this many models and this many years, is not the work of one rogue engineer. It required a culture in which impossible targets came down from the top, and the people below concluded that cheating was safer for their careers than telling the truth. The governance of the company, the tone set by its leaders, and the oversight meant to catch exactly this, did not stop it. It created the pressure that produced it. The exposure did not come from inside Volkswagen, and it did not come from a government lab. It came from a small nonprofit. In 2013, the International Council on Clean Transportation, expecting to show how clean modern diesels were, commissioned researchers at West Virginia University to test a few cars on real roads rather than in a lab. They fitted portable equipment to a Volkswagen Jetta, a Passat, and a BMW. The BMW performed as expected. The two Volkswagens did not. On the open road, their nitrogen oxide emissions were many times the legal limit. The researchers published the anomaly in 2014 and reported it to American regulators. For more than a year, Volkswagen offered technical explanations and a voluntary recall that did not fix the gap. Finally, cornered, the company admitted the truth to regulators. On the 18th of September 2015, the United States Environmental Protection Agency issued a formal notice of violation. The defeat device was public. Within days, Volkswagen's chief executive, Martin Winterkorn, resigned. The reckoning was enormous. Volkswagen agreed to plead guilty to criminal charges in the United States and to pay billions in penalties and buybacks. In one settlement alone, it committed up to $14.7 billion to compensate owners and fund environmental repair. Total costs across fines, settlements, and recalls worldwide passed $30 billion, more than 31 billion euros. Individuals were charged. James Leong, an engineer, was sentenced to 40 months in prison. Oliver Schmidt, an executive who managed relations with regulators, received 7 years. Martin Winterkorn was charged by American authorities in 2018, but Germany does not extradite its citizens, so he has stayed beyond the reach of the United States, still contesting the case at home. Rupert Stadler, the former head of Volkswagen's Audi division, was convicted in Germany in 2023 and given a suspended sentence and a fine, the most senior executive to be found criminally responsible. Here is the lesson, stripped down. A control assumes good faith on the other side. An emissions test, an audit, a safety inspection, all of them are designed to catch mistakes and ordinary corner cutting. None of them is designed to catch a sophisticated opponent who studies the test and builds a machine specifically to pass it while doing the opposite in real life. When the entity being checked decides to weaponize its own engineering against the check, a single control cannot save you. Only a culture that refuses to cheat can. That is why this case belongs beside the others, even though no money was hidden. Every fraud in this series began the same way, with a gap between what an organization promised and what it could actually deliver, and a decision to close that gap with deception instead of honesty. Volkswagen had the talent to build a genuinely clean engine eventually. What it did not have in that moment was the willingness to admit it was not ready. The defeat device was not just illegal software. It was the physical proof that a company had decided the truth was too expensive, and a control, no matter how well designed, cannot survive an organization that has made that decision.